What is happening, people? Welcome to another episode of In the Know With, and today we are in the know with the show stealer, Nathan Cruz. How are you, sir?
I'm very good, thank you. Thanks very much for having me on.
Thank you for coming on. So I usually start off with a little icebreaker, so just people can kind of get to know you a little bit outside of wrestling. So today's icebreaker, the question is, if you could hang around any cartoon character, who would it be and why?
Oh, Homer Simpson. Homer Simpson, hands down, Homer Simpson. Like, without a doubt, he's just got life sussed. He's got. I don't know how he's blagged it to that point in his life, but he's managed to do so that he's got this big house, good wife, will do anything for him and let him get away with such amazing, incredible stuff. Yeah, it would be Homer Simpson all day long.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who would I hang around with. Probably Spider-Man. I was a big Spider-Man fan.
Okay, so I didn't include comic book characters.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can even have comic book characters as well.
You see, obviously, how cool it'd be to meet Batman or, like you said, Spider-Man. I don't know. Homer Simpson's still very, very alluring to me. Yeah. I think I could have a good beer with Homer. I'd have a better night out with Batman, but certainly a better overall beer experience with Homer Simpson.
Yeah, no, I think that would be jokes, man. I think that would be proper sick. So let's start at the beginning. So obviously, you're in the wrestling industry, you're a wrestler yourself. I want to know, like, what was it like growing up being a wrestling fan? You know, what made you now want to become a wrestler? Were there any, like, defining moments, or were there any specific wrestlers that you grew up watching that made you realize, oh, you know what, this is something I want to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I always watched wrestling because my dad watched it. So I can't give you an exact time when I started watching it. It was just one of them things that was always there. Yeah. Like Star Trek. It was like, those are the things I remember my dad watching. It was just always there. But that was the one show that I watched with him and was like fully, I mean, the first impression of wrestling I have in my mind is The Undertaker's entrance. Yeah. I was born in 1990. So like I basically would have grown up with his career coming through, and I just remember that's like my first vision of like watching wrestling and having a memory of it. But then I became a diehard fan, like most people in my era, around 97, 98, during the Monday Night Wars. Fell in love big time with WCW as well, and I was probably at one time more on the WCW fence. Yeah. And that's how I actually met my best friend to this day, Matt Myers. Oh yeah. We went to the same school together, and I remember it was like bring a toy to school day, and he was the only other person in our classroom who had WCW figures, as well as WWF, because like everyone had wrestling figures pretty much, because that's what all the boys were into. But then that was like you watch WCW? Yeah. So we just hit it off straight away because of that. But then as I go back to it, Undertaker was always like my guy in WWF. And around the time the Ministry of Darkness started, I mean, that was I fully defected back to WWF because I just found that storyline to be so interesting. And it was that stuff that made me start to really fall in love with wrestling, that more the theatrical side of it. Like I understood how important it was creating a moment as opposed to coming up with a fastest sequence that, you know, will go over someone's head. When it was about creating these pinpoint moments within sports entertainment that you look back on and everyone remembers Undertaker rolling his eyes to the back of the head, sticking his tongue out as Austin's getting sacrificed on the cross behind him, right?
I remember that.
It's a proper iconic moment and everybody remembers that stuff. But I can guarantee that on that same Monday Night Raw, there'd have been a lightweight match or cruiserweight match at the time, with a zillion spots like that. I guarantee they won't be remembered. And I'm not saying that there's no place for that. I'm just that it isn't important, because it is important. But it was that stuff that made me fall in love with it, the theatrical side of it. But then taking it back to the wrestling match, WrestleMania 17, Triple H, Undertaker, the storyline building up to that, how invested I was in the fact that it was Taker's hometown. And I remember watching that match at 10 years old And just as Taker's dripped off the middle rope, he's got the blood trickling down his forehead, he looks out at the Astrodome, there's like 63,000 people who will never know Mark Calloway as a person on a personal level, but will always remember him as The Undertaker and the impact he still had on their life. And that resonated so much within me, like the impact that he was having on a 10-year-old kid in Hull, England, all the way while he was tearing it down in Houston, Texas. And it was that moment that I said, I can't just be a fan of this.
Yeah.
I have to do this. Like, this is my career path now. And you go through secondary school and you get a lot of like criticism for that, because there's a few people grew out of it and stuff like that, but more so from a lot of teachers. There's a lot of teachers who was like, no, but what are you going to do in the real world? And my response though was that well, all these other people have done it, so that told me that it's achievable.
Yeah, exactly.
The only thing that's going to separate me from doing that is a mindset. If I've got to work 70% of my life instead of living it 30%, I want to make sure I love what I'm doing and love my work, and this is what I want to do, because then I'll never feel like work. I'm just continuing to live my life,
exactly,
and make the most of my short time here on earth. So that was like, and it sounds ridiculous to say that was the mindset of a 14-year-old, but it truthfully was. Like, I was looking at people who was going into like getting on that career path already at school by what they choose to do for work experience and stuff like that. But there was no plan B for me. Like, I was fully focused. Like, this is what I need to do with my life. That's basically like where that journey began, was from WrestleMania 17.
That's crazy. I remember that pay-per-view vividly as well, and even just that match alone. I think for me, that's probably one of my favorite Undertaker matches as well. What an incredible pay-per-view. So when did you officially start training?
So I started training when I was 15. I was looking for a wrestling school for the longest time. Couldn't find one. I used to go to every live wrestling that used to come to Hull. We used to go to All-Star Wrestling at the Hull City Hall all the time, which comes full circle in a moment. We'll get to, no doubt. And then there was a small promotion that just came to a local community centre one time. I was like, we'll check it out, see what it's about. Like, you don't get much live wrestling in the country back in 2006.
Yeah.
So let's go check it out. So we went to watch it, and it was, you'd ask me now, it was crap. It was terrible. But back then, we didn't get that much live wrestling experience.
Yeah.
And maybe once or twice a year. Like, this is like brilliant. This was cool. And we went to see the guy after, and it just so happens he was going to be starting a wrestling school at the same community centre. And I just remember that first day, it was a big group of us, Myers included, and we looked at each other and we said, like, oh, this is the first step. This is the first step into like achieving the dream. And it was funny to see so many of these eventually blip off of the six of us that had made that pact. Like, bing, bing, bing. It was just me and Matty left, really, and Andy, who helps me now with Inside the Toy Room and stuff like that, the video editing. He's an incredibly talented video editor, and that's kind of what he fell into within wrestling as well. So he didn't fully step away from it. He just found a different path.
Found a different passion,
Yeah. But yeah, for that first training session, we were so excited, and it's funny to think back to it now. The guy was an absolute fraud. We just didn't know. He wrestled under the name of the Urban Warrior, and Ron Wilkinson, just an absolute crook. But we didn't know. We didn't know any better. We was just happy that there was some form of wrestling school that we could finally get our hands on, because it was like the internet was like a fresh thing then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was hard to find places that had somewhere. So anyways, we got our foot in the door through him, and good or bad, whatever, I still don't think I'd change it, because I don't know what path it would have changed me on. Yeah. Because through Ron, I'd met Brad Flash, and Brad Flash started running regional shows in his region of like South Yorkshire, where he lives, and that was like my first breakout experience, like getting out of like Hull, Grimsby, Cleethorpes, which was like the only place that was really wrestling, it was like, okay, now I'm starting to spread my wings on my own as well. It was just like Brad saw something in me, wanted to use me on his shows, thought I had a future. So it was just, yeah, as bad as the start it was, I still wouldn't change it, as odd as that sounds.
No, that's sick, man. Even when you mentioned about going to the show and it looking like the sickest thing at the time, I recall when I was younger, I think one of the first shows I went to outside of a WWE show was a show in Butlins. And at the time, it was very like different to me because, you know, as a young wrestler, I must have been like 8 or 9, and I'm just thinking to myself, these aren't WWE wrestlers, but they're wrestlers. But the show was just, I was still captivated the same way. But looking back, it was like, it wasn't really that great. But it's just crazy to see like the evolution of how British wrestling has gone from what it was before. And even to some degree, I feel like it was a bit stigmatized as well because it wasn't seen as like the big leagues. Whereas to now, you have so many different shows everywhere, and people look at it and it's just like, oh, this is amazing stuff. Nobody's looking to British wrestling to think. They're not trying to compare it to what we have in the States.
Yeah, I mean, them Butlin shows, like, to go to your point on there, I think are an essential piece of learning within this country. It's a good bread and butter for anybody to make their money. A lot of people who've now gone on to become WWE superstars have worked those camps. Sheamus, Bryan Danielson, like, to this day says he'd happily go back and do that all over again because it's the best time of his life. Cash Wheeler, one half of FTR. There's so many that have come through that have absolutely loved those camps as an incredible learning experience. But that's the thing, like, you may have seen people at a learning experience. But yeah, for me, like, we'll get into that when we go into my career, but for me, like, the where I've learned my craft, the best place to work.
Yes, three of the people that I ended up seeing at around that period in Butlins was Mason Ryan. I think he went by the name of SmackDown Warrior or something like that. But when I saw him, I said, wow, this guy looks like Batista. So I was just like, Mason Ryan.
Yeah.
Ended up seeing Magnus.
Nick
Aldis, and ended up seeing Sheamus as well, Sheamus O'Shaughnessy. So just being able to look back and say, oh wow, I got to see these guys like at a time where before they became who they were. And I mean, for me, that's just like one of my claim to fame. Like, I saw them before you guys. So yeah, it was proper sick. So you started training at 15. What was it like taking your first bump?
A shock. It just drove the wind right out of me. I was like, heck, what the hell is this? It was the same when I took like my first forearm smash. Like, I remember just thinking, I was like, I thought this shit was fake.
Yeah.
Just getting wallops. I'm like, oh no, like this is like you fast wake up to the realization of it's fixed, but it isn't fake.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
You have to quickly become callous to taking bumps, taking forearms, taking kicks, taking punches, headbutts, whatever it might be. Like, I fast woke up to that realization that to do this convincingly, there has to be quite a bit of physical contact involved.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Because even me, I want to, like, my lifelong dream is maybe in the next year or two, I just want to have one wrestling match. That's it. Just one match. I'm good with that.
Right.
I don't want to wrestle any more than that. I want to retire with just one win. Hopefully that. And three of my friends have started training, and just like the pain that they've put themselves through so far, I'm just thinking, you know what, I need to mentally get myself ready for that. So, I mean, I'll probably update you and let you know how things go.
I mean, anyone who's thinking of getting into it might, and like after this lockdown ends and they can actually go back to doing something that they love, like, my advice would be to use this time now to really concentrate on your cardio. Yeah. Cardio's the thing that will save you or break you in what we do. Yeah. So, that'd be my advice to anybody right now is considering coming out of lockdown, wanting to become, or at least, like you said, just get to that one match and start training. That, and obviously resource yourself a good training school and trainer, unlike I did in 2006.
So fast forward, how far along were you into your training until you had your debut match? or were you still good? Because I know a lot of people go along the process of still training and then getting into matches. So was it similar like that for you, or?
Yeah, it was 4 months, and you know, looking back on it, I wasn't ready. Nowhere near ready. The only thing that I had going for me was that I was I did a lot of acting as a kid, and I was good at it, and so that's what got me through. My selling, my charisma, and you know, just for me, it was just the thrill of doing it. Like at 15 years old, and like coming back, and that was a tiny when I started wrestling, I was about 9 stone. I was small, really small. It took me a long time to bulk up to where I am at today.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I was a really skinny kid, like with no physique, so I had a little pot belly as well.
Yeah.
Coming back with a handprint on my back, and you can see like the guy's rivets, like you know, like your wrinkles here and your knuckles. But the pictures around on social media somewhere, you can see like the span of my back. And yeah, he hit me so hard that I had these lines in it, and that was basically how it went. I just got the shit kicked out of me. Like the first few months of like my last few months of being 15, my first few months of 16, I just got beat up. We had some good matches on the, like I say good, but like I had some fun, enjoyable ones on the way when sometimes it'd be more just like the students and we'd get to do some stuff. But other than that, like it was just brutal. Every one of those shows ended with a rumble where the veterans would get hold of the young lads and you know, see how badly we wanted to stay in it. And like a lot of people say that's bullying and, you know, things have come on. I would never do that now. I think that is a bit of a liberty. I've been in that situation. But at the same time, can I say that it built my character? Did it make me ask myself that question of, do I really, really want to do this? Do I really want to go on this path where I may potentially make some money or may potentially fall flat on my ass? Like, it really did. So from a character building standpoint, from making me the man I am today, absolutely, I saw the lesson in it and the benefit from it. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Yes, we live in a better world now where, you know, there's other ways to portray those messages and things like that. But at the same time, like, again, it's one of them odd things that I just wouldn't change because I think it's helped me become, if I didn't experience it so bad, like, it then makes me not want to carry that on necessarily, but take that lesson and still install it, but in a different way. So I'm not literally beating somebody up and, you know, bullying them because it's just not cool.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So so what was the first promotion you worked in? It wasn't NGW, was it? So I think that's how I first heard of you.
Yeah. So I mean, so PWA, it was the guy who Urban Warrior who brought in. That was the first promotion. That's why I was working for 2006 and then 2007. He had the Haven camp shows near it was like Filey area. He had them, Mablethorpe, Cleethorpes, and then he'd do shows in Grimsby and Hull. And so that was the way I was getting the majority of my work for that first year. Then Brad came in and started doing shows in South Yorkshire, got me out there by like mid-07 going into 2008. And then that was when I was like, do you know what? Like, I've put up with Ron's shit for long enough now. I had my reasonable doubts about it quite a while at that point. And so I told him work wherever I want to work. Because then Ligero saw me in 2008 and he saw something in me. He saw potential in me and wanted to help me. And it, you know, like obviously certain things that have come out with him as of recent. I'm not going to go into those. And I'm only going to talk about like his impact on me and my career. And that was all positive. From a, you know, he didn't have to, but he helped. And without his help, I wouldn't have got to where I needed to be. Because in my mind, I remembered at that point, I remembered being 13 years old, going to the Hull City Hall to watch All Star Wrestling and getting their magazine and seeing on the back of it, it was all their town dates. And I remember counting them up. soon was like 180, and I was like, I said to Matty, like, if we ever want to make it as independent wrestlers in England, this is where we'd have to be. I may have not worded it like that, but that was like the gist of what I said to him. I was like, because look at that schedule, that's how you'd make a full-time living, that's how busy you could be. And in that time as well, just to go back to it, growing up, we watched FWA on the wrestling channel as well. So there was like
Wrestling Alliance. I loved it.
Yeah, right. So like we're going between the two of them in like, oh my god, like there's all these dates and this TV. Like it actually seemed like there was a big thing to reach for in British wrestling. So my goal at this point was to get onto All Star. That's all I wanted to be, because I knew that I'd be wrestling so often that would become training to me. You know, that's where I truly learned this. And I knew the type of people that they had there. Robbie Brooks, James Mason, like two names straight away that when you say them command respect, and you know how good they are at this. And then as a fan going to watch those shows, I was a huge fan of Robbie Dynamite and Dean Allmark. Dean Allmark was actually in a tag team with a kid called Kid Cool. Again, I'll probably touch on later how beneficial he was to me. But like, it just seemed like the place to be. And the league's teaching me gave me the skills to get to All Star. It also got me, you know, he helped get one of the opportunities for me there. But you know, he did so much for me in those early years when he was completely selfless of him. He had nothing to gain from that. And for that reason, like I am, you know, I can sit here and talk about him and you know, be very positive about what he did for me, regardless of what's come out. Like I'm just talking about his personal impact on my career. And at that point in my journey, like I can't just blank that out. I can't just skip that chapter. Like I have to mention it. Otherwise, there's a huge gap of like, hold on, you was just doing like these South Yorkshire working men's clubs. Next thing, you're wrestling Croydon, Fairfield Halls. You know what I mean? Like what happened? It's a big chunk that's quite important there, and that just so happens to be Ligero.
Wicked. And how was it? How was your time at NGW? Because for me, that was the first time I've ever heard of you. Because I don't know if a lot of people would remember Wrestle Talk used to show on Challenge, and then they do their segment of, you know, talking about what's happened this week in wrestling, news, rumors, reviews, all of that stuff. And then they'll show like a quick, like 20-minute clip or 30-minute clip of just matches that happened on NGW and around the UK. And I remember the first match that I ever saw from you was you versus Marty Scurll.
Okay, right, yeah.
That was the first match I saw. Because I was a bit dumbfounded. I was thinking, oh, wait, isn't Marty Scurll the host of Wrestle Talk? And I didn't even know he wrestled as well. But then I also didn't realise he was previously on TNA's Gut Check, like the British boot camp thing that they were doing at the time. Because he looked so different from how he looked when he was in TNA at the time. Completely changed himself. So, how was your time over there?
So NGW started in Hull in 2008. It was a group of us who left PWA. There was myself, Myers, and a lad called Luke Ingemels. And Luke wanted to start his own wrestling promotion. And he was, I wasn't involved necessarily other than to really tell him about talent, because I was out on the independent scene around South Yorkshire and stuff. So I helped him get a bit of talent, but Matty named it, and Luke just started running these shows called New Generation Wrestling. And they were okay, but the one going anywhere. And I could see that, and it was kind of upsetting to me because I kind of felt like we had the potential to do something. And then in 2009, I met a guy called Rich Dunn, who had basically been apprenticed by Andy Quilden, because he wanted to become a wrestling promoter. So he went to one of the most successful UK wrestling promoters and learned from him. And he was co-producing a show in Hull between IPW and NGW. And we started to spend a bit of time together because of that. And I could tell Rich had the right mindset to really make it go somewhere. And it was, he thought highly of me and Myers as well, which was good. Like, because we had a storyline that we was dying to start. And then, Rich came in, things changed. Luke had a lot more going on in his personal life. And between that time, Rich managed to really turn the company around. And 2010, I 2011, sorry, I had one of my favorite runs in pro wrestling as their heel champion, their top heel champion. Like,
Yeah.
I was 20, 21 years old. I'd already done the thing with Alex.
I remember watching that as well.
Yeah.
I feel like Alex Shane, he's not really spoken about too much, because even if you look back at stuff like FWA, he was one of the leading men at the time. Like, he was one of the first British wrestlers outside of those in America that I really looked at. I'm like, oh, him, Doug Williams. There's a fair few, but Alex Shane was definitely one of the first people that I looked at and I thought, oh, okay, you're someone that I can relate to because you're from here, and I like the fact that I don't like you. So, and I remember when, I think, did FWA do, I think they done a joint show with Ring of Honor.
Yes, they did.
Yes, and I was so upset I couldn't go to that. I was so, like, I think that even looking back, and I've rewatched it. I think maybe a few months, like during the first lockdown, I was rewatching it back, and I was just thinking, damn, like, we had an event like this, and social media wasn't as hot at the time, but the fact that they was able to sell it out, and it was just amazing. That was proper sick.
It was a big deal, like a really big deal at that time, and like that was what made the thing in 2010 where Alex dropped the show stealer name to me. And we did that in NGW. That was part of NGW's build to get to where they ended up being, and that was again because of that knock-on effect that Alex and the FWA had, particularly like guys like Doug Williams, like you just mentioned, and Johnny Storm, like people who is now like ingrained in young people's minds, like young British fans. Yeah, exactly. Like, we remember those guys vividly, and that was kind of cool. That was, to me, like when you hear about like in the territory days in the United States, and they had like local stars, because they were on the local TV network. I was like, that's kind of like what we got here going on in England. It was really cool. And then but yeah, by 2015, which would have been when you saw me v Marty, NGW just grown from strength to strength to strength. It's moved on from this community centre to doing something called the Gemtech Arena, which was an indoor sports arena. Then they got an offer from Hull City Hall to start doing it there, and that was just amazing. Like, that's when things changed. I took a bit of time out of the promotion because I'd been there. I'd done everything that that character could do at that point as a heel up to 2013, and we knew that the plan going forward was for me to come back as the company's top babyface in 2014. So I took a bit of time out there, and even in that time, like, it changed so much. It was like, oh, we're not just doing the arena every now and then. This is our new full venue now. Like, that's pretty cool. And then we say, like, best moments in my wrestling career with NGW, and I can't say thank you enough to them for everything that that company did for me in like the last 5-6 years in particular. I loved how much in my early 20s in particular, how much creative control it gave me to be able to have of my character and suggest stuff. I was very heavily involved with like the editing with Andy. Like, we used to do all the build-up videos, highlight videos, entrance videos and stuff, but it was just having that creativity to be able to, because I was on the road at that point, wrestling had become my full-time job, and I was on the road a lot with Colossus Kennedy. He was like, we both live in the same area. We were road buddies, and we both worked for NGW, and we used to talk so many ideas and stuff. So by the time we got to training on a Wednesday, we'd be like, hey, Rich. And we'd have all these ideas, and like, some would get taken on board, some would be binned, some would be... It was just really like, it was such a great place for me to invest my passion at a time when I was so busy with wrestling. And it was, you know, I remember 2011, I look back so fondly because I was wrestling in the summer. I was wrestling 7 days a week, sometimes 3 times a day, quite often twice a day. I just, my life for a 20 going into 21-year-old was far better than it had the right to be. For somebody who didn't really leave school with that great of an education.
Yeah.
I was like, actually, I remember after I was with my girlfriend at the time, we was able to pay for a holiday to go to Spain just after I finished that summer season, and I was laying on this beach, and the first holiday I'd gone on as an adult on my own, and it's like just chilling and just thinking, and I've paid for this, and I did all this as a pro wrestler.
Yeah.
And I've just wrestled about 300 matches in 6 weeks or whatever it was. And about 289 of them were against Ligero.
Yeah.
But it was just mental. And then at the time, again, I had the NGW Championship, and I'd done some amazing matches up to that point. One with Dean Hallmark, which I'm so proud of in particular. And it was just amazing to me at that time. I was just laying there thinking, this is, if there was ever the first time, I kind of thought to myself, you've made it, you've done it. That was it. That was like that first time was like, I'm funding my life, and it's a good life.
Yeah.
Off of being a professional wrestler. I'm not starving. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like I'm making this happen. And it was just the greatest. You know, I didn't have no expense at that time. I still lived with my mum.
Yeah.
So it was easier to do.
Yeah.
But like, it was just a really cool position to be in. And I was, you know, I don't often have moments that I thought where I was like, yes, I'm doing this and being like bigging myself up. But that was kind of one of those, you know, you deserve a pat on the back for this one, Nick, because you've worked hard to get to this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, and NGW again was a big part of that. So yeah, I owe them a lot to what they did to me in the past, right up to this year when all this stuff kicked off.
Yeah. So as well as NGW, you've also done shows with the likes of World of Sport, Progress, the not recent but a few years back, Defiant recently closed. What were your experiences like with those companies? I know you were the first ever Progress champion, if I'm correct.
Yeah, that's right. Progress was class. It was just a break from, like, at that time I was doing a lot of like All Star and NGW, which are very family friendly based shows. NGW might push the edge a little, but other than that, it's still very family friendly. And we get contacted by these guys. Now, this is at a time when, you know, Start Promotions was happening every weekend. Everyone was trying their hand at being a wrestling promoter, and some places was worth your time. Other places it was like, you know what, I'd rather the day off today because this was clearly managed incorrectly by people who don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So you'd get get these emails, and so this was like in my calendar as just London show. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
This is just, we all was kind of like, we've got that show in London. I don't know what they're on about, like, really, like this new promotion or whatever. Didn't really. It was just, we'll see how it is. It's going to be one of them. And then I had my first match there, which was against Colossus, and I came out of that going, well, this place has got something special about it. Like, I just knew instantly. It was a completely different vibe. Anything like I'd done, anything like I was currently doing. This is something new and refreshing for both fans and performers. It's a really positive work environment. They decided to put the championship on me because of a match that seen a man fought All-Star Wrestling at Gravesend. And they was really entertained by what I'd done, and for that reason, they wanted to have me as their first champion. It was very flattering. I was kind of ready at the time, but not for that particular type of crowd, because I'd never experienced that before. One person who had was Marty Scale. Scale knew so well how to work that type of audience. And the second show, Chapter 2, was a 2 out of 3 falls for the title between me and Marty. To this day is one of my favourite matches of all time that I've had in my career. Not just because of the performance that we put on, but because of how much I learned from that match, from working with Marty. And to this day, Marty has been nothing but incredible to me to work with, to learn from. He's been a good friend. He's just he helped me a lot. He helped me really understand. Like he helped me get out of a sink or swim situation within that crowd, because I was out of my depth. This was new territory for me, and I was kind of learning as I go. When I dropped the championship, I keep saying belt, but it was a staff.
Oh yeah, I remember. I had the staff at the time.
Yeah. Right. So I dropped it to Ligero at the end of that year, and I was in somewhat of a relief, but also kind of like frustrated with myself, because it was like I was starting to like get this type of style and like learn to it, and I had stuff in my mind that I wanted to do, but at the same time I was like, I've always been that wrestler that, look, leave some stuff for the main event if I'm not in the main event, because I'd expect that care to do. You know what I mean? So it was me having to not necessarily be in that position, but what I was in the position for was they'd asked me the next show, who do I want to wrestle, because they didn't really have anything in mind for me, and I said Rampage. Now at that point,
I want to get onto that
Rampage,
soon. I want to get onto Rampage soon.
If there's anybody who I owe at least 50% of my wrestling ability, my career, and everything that I got to achieve to, it's Rampage. So when I got to All Star in 2010, when I was just this 19-year-old kid, we was meeting up in Leeds. I live in Hull, so I'd get an hour's bus to Leeds, meet Liggs, and then me and Liggs would jump in the car with Drew McDonald and Rampage, and that was just, and then we'd go meet the Beast, which was the big 8-seater, and then we'd go to the show from there. But we became the Yorkshire car, and then Colossus came in. Colossus became our driver, and it was just the four of us, and Rampage saw something in me when I got to All Star, and he just wanted to help me. And I remember my first match at All Star being with him, and thinking when I was in there, like, oh, this guy's next level. I remember when I first actually got to watch him instead of being in the ring with him, I turned to Liggs. He was wrestling Dean Allmark, and I turned to Liggs and said, he'll get signed to the WWE in no time. Like, he had the look, he had the agility, he just had the believability. And this is back in 2010. Sure enough, 4 months later, he got signed. And at that point, I was upset because I was losing a friend and a good mentor. He really taught me so much in those years. And I left. I remember when I joined the team that year, and then when Rampage left to go to FCW, which I believe was around November time, October time, I was a completely different wrestler, and I was so much more confident in my own ability. And he just helped me get to where that next level would be, that anybody would even consider him for a WWE tryout, which was, by the time I got to All Star, that was my next goal. Like, and I was hearing it from the right people. Drew, who at the time was a European talent scout before Robbie, and he looked at me. I was 21 years old, and he said, "Give him a couple of years, he'll be ready for a tryout." And it meant the world to me, because I was like, okay, I'm definitely doing. I'm on the right path. Everything's going in the right direction. Yeah, but yeah, Rampage was just. So when he left FCW, when he was, I remember Skyping to him regularly when he was there and hearing how happy he was, and it was breaking my heart to see somebody who I knew loved this so much as he did, to be so defeated on it. And he told me he was leaving. I was quite happy for him, and he was coming back to England, and he said, I don't want to do it differently though. I don't just want to work for Brian at All Star. He said, I want to really get out there and do some of those small shows that you're on, because there were smaller shows at that time compared to Brian's. Yeah. In both in regular work and even audience capacity. So I said, yeah, you know what? Like, the independents are really starting to boom, because this was at the start of 2013 when we were starting to see a big growth. And I said, mate, you definitely need to be here. In fact, no, this was 2012. Sorry. So this is 100% where you're gonna like really make that impact. Like, you're the best wrestler in the UK, man. Like, I know it. I've known it for a very long time. It frustrates me that others don't know about you, because he'd been hidden with Brian for so long. So he'd started working in GW, he'd started working PCW, and he was starting to get a bit of buzz like that. But I knew that Progress was the place where they're going to love this guy. I know, and he's going to love them. He's going to love working here. It's going to be a really good working relationship. And it was an opportunity for me to give something back to the guy that had done so much for me at that point in my life. And he's always been like a big brother to me. So, yeah, let's have this match.
Yeah.
Chapter 6, Nathan Cruz, Rampage Brown. Again, like, one of my favourite matches because I get knocked out. I'm unconscious after his short arm clothesline. We have a trade-off in there, which is completely legit. Again, and go back to him being like my big brother. Like, he just... Anytime I'm in the ring with him, I almost have to prove how tough I can be.
Yeah.
So we had this agreement that we was going to do this trade where we're going to start headbutting each other. And we're just going to headbutt each other. Like, let's do it Finley Regal. Let's just go for it. And I asked the question. I was like, well, when do we finish them and go to the forearms? And he was just like, whenever they last, you know, whoever throws the first forearm.
Yeah.
And I get it in my head then, I've got to keep going, I've got to stand up to it. I'm going to keep throwing these headbutts. But then the next thing is I'm knocked out on my feet and he's dragging me through the rest of the match because I'm unconscious. I have no idea where the hell I am.
That's crazy.
It was one of my first few concussions.
Flipping out.
It was brilliant. I just loved that match so much, and more than anything, like, it gave me the opportunity to try and show him how much I'd learned while he's been away, and you know how much I respected him and wanted to be in the ring with the absolute best, and also open everybody else's eyes to look. Here's the best. Like, you think these guys are the best, you know, none of us are in comparison to this guy. He's next level. And sure enough, I think it was within 2 chapters' time, he was the champion. And it has gone on to prove that further, like, that he really is the best. Like, you ask anybody in this country on the independent scene who they consider the best UK independent wrestler, Rampage Brown is on everyone's lips. Like, I remember his WOS announcement when they was coming back World of Sport. Every single one, I would like retweet it or quoted it, like Shah Samuels, Lionheart, all these guys who you'd call prolific British wrestlers, just quoted it as the best. And he'd earned that reputation, and not just to us, but to the fans. Like, they saw that. It gave me goosebumps watching his entrance at Progress when they'd be all singing along to Hatebreed. I remember the first time we did Manchester, and because it's a bit more up north where me and Rampage are both from, and they all started singing along to him. It was like he was a god. It just walked in, and it brought a tear to my eye. Like, I was up there like, God, like, because he fucking deserves this. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's always deserved this, and it just meant so much to me on a personal level. Like, I love him to bits. Like, I really do. I owe him so much. He's a stand-up bloke as well. Like, away from the ring, like, one of the most genuine people you could ever meet. Yeah, 100% top guy.
No, I can imagine, because even with a lot of wrestlers I've spoken to, they have nothing but high praises for him. And even like prior to that, because even with a lot of my friends and people, my friends on the podcast, we would, you know, have discussions about NXT UK and NXT, and, you know, we'll be at odds comparing it, and we'll be just thinking like, what is actually missing with NXT UK? Because the matches, I mean, in terms of the takeovers, the match quality is amazing. It's just as good as NXT over in America. It's just that there's something missing that's not allowing us to want to tune in every week. And for me, I felt it was star power. I felt like NXT UK was lacking in stars. So, and then a lot of the times when we're debating, who do you think they could potentially sign? Obviously, certain people can't get signed due to whatever reason. Someone might be linked to this company or whatnot. And then the question that always raised was like, why isn't Rampage Brown signed? Like, surely there could be a possibility. And then when we finally saw him debut, or when they announced he was going to be coming, I think all of our lids just blew off. Like, thank God. Like, this has been a long time coming. And obviously for him to sign now, it must have made all the sense in the world. Because like you mentioned, he was in FCW before. So it's not that WWE wasn't in the know of him. And I'm sure of course, when they now announced NXT UK years ago, I'm sure he must have been on a few lists, but maybe for him personally, obviously I don't know. I can only speculate that at that time he probably wasn't ready for it, and he probably wanted to just do his own thing until he then decides to, you know, go over to NXT UK. But for me, honestly, this is one of the biggest assets that they've acquired in a long, long time. Maybe since Walter, because because and I feel like NXT UK have been lacking in stars for God knows how many years, and you know, it's not. I can't see what, like, Walter's just gonna go through the whole roster. It's gonna get to a point. It's gonna be like, okay, cool. Who can actually take him on? And I don't think there's anybody better than Rampage Brown that could potentially do that.
And I, knowing both those guys and what they're capable of, like a match with that focal attention on it would be absolutely a work of art. It'd be a piece of wrestling art. Like, I know how their mindset and their work ethic is. Again, just incredible talent, incredible wrestling talent when you talk about those two names, and I've just got nothing but great things to say about Rampage. I really do.
Yeah, no, that's really wicked. Have you? I'm sure you have. You wrestled for WWE, or did you? I'm sure you had a tryout.
Yeah. So, 2014. At that point, Robbie Brookside had been the European talent scout, and I'd been very fortunate enough with the opportunity with my young all-star career to travel with Robbie, get in the ring with him once or twice, and just genuinely try and pick his brain. I started going to his wrestling school as well. He was based in Leicester, and he had like a wrestling school. It was like more chance to get to be around Robbie and learn from him. Amazing. Yeah. He was doing like a WWE drill class this one time, and he said, like, I want you to come because I want to see if you can, you know, handle the WWE tryouts. It's like, okay, that's a very positive thing. And this was back end of 2013. So he said, okay, we're gonna put you forward for the November tryout. I was like, well, oh, really? You think I'm ready? And he was like, yeah. Like, okay. So big thing. Didn't get the November one. He said, don't worry, you know, just keep going at it, which I did. Again, went to his school, and it just kept on doing what I was doing on the independent scene and plugging on with it. And then I got to, in the meantime, then start getting a secondary job, because me and my fiance was saving for a house, and I needed money for a deposit. And so, as much as my brain's focused to WWE, I've also got this thing that's kind of pulling me like away from it in this normal job as it was. And I was coming back from that job this day on the bus, and it was about 10 days before the tryouts. It was supposed to start in London, so I just assumed I wasn't going again. And then all of a sudden my phone buzzes. It was an email from Canyon Seaman, WWE, saying congratulations. And I just burst into tears on the bus. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, here we are. Like, at that point, I was 23, going on 24. And, you know, this is all I'd ever wanted from 10 years old. And was this opportunity. So here we go. Get the WWE tryout out of the way. First time I met William Regal. And he was a, you know, just brilliant guy again, really sound. And then they both started to like contact me via email, as in Robbie and Regal, just to say, like, we know we are interested. It's a no this time, because we was looking for a certain thing and you don't fit that model, but we definitely are interested and there will be an opportunity for you. Late that year, Robbie had started, it was, where was it based now? It was like, so it was a tour that WWE was putting together for like the UK, for their live event tour. And for whatever reason, I was busy on the dates that Robbie contacted me. It was our engagement party. That was it.
Okay.
So it was our engagement party, and then Robbie messaged me all these dates for the live tour of WWE as an extra. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I can't, at that point, you know, I can't say no to this stuff. Yeah. And like, Gemma, just being the amazing fiance she is, understood. She was upset because we had to cancel our engagement party.
I can imagine.
Understood completely. And I went away for the week, and it was we was just rosebuds for Adam Rose at the time.
How was that? How was that for you?
Yeah, it was class. It was a payday. Got
Yeah.
treated really well. Got free food. And
What did you dress up? What did you dress up as?
I was Elvis. Yeah.
Oh, wicked.
Yeah. So it was really cool. It was just, you know, it was a good experience and good to see how WWE TV is made and stuff like that. And at the end of the live tour, we did a tryout, like an unofficial tryout in SmackDown, just before SmackDown, where there was just like, let's just get in there and see what these lads can do. And we had some matches that we could talk about beforehand. And then there was one lad who didn't have an opponent. So I just said, you know, Regal took me to the side and said, do you reckon you could get him through a match? I said, yeah, I'll call it in there to him. And I think that's what bode well for me, because they saw me actually calling this match.
Yeah.
And the Usos were sat there watching it. And anyways, I go backstage after, and I was sat talking to, I can't remember who I was talking to at the time. But then all of a sudden, Joe Hendry comes up to me because he was there as well, and just went, if Robbie wants a word with you, and gives me a big thumbs up. And I was like, holy shit, I'm about to get signed. Like, I was like, you know what I mean? Robbie texts me to the side and explains I wasn't getting signed, but I've got a match that night on SmackDown in the Liverpool Echo Arena. It was me and Justin Sison as a tag team against the Usos.
Yeah.
And I remember I think it was Jay, said to me, he's like, oh, I saw your tryout earlier, like, I'll bump around all day for you, like, you know what you're doing. And it, again, huge praise for someone in that position. I was like, that's amazing. And we had, I got to wrestle for the WWE in front of 11,500 people with a SmackDown set, and it was just amazing, like pinch yourself moments, like, again, like one of those moments where I was like, you did it, Nath, like, you can give yourself a pat on the back for this one, like, this isn't you being brash, this isn't you being arrogant, like, you've worked all your life,
you deserve it.
For that moment, and, you know, as brief as it was, it meant everything. It was complete validation of, you know, what I'd done with my life. At that point, I was so happy. I drove home that night again, crying, like, just tears of pure joy.
Yeah.
I'd done a promo early that day backstage to Regal, Robbie and Frankie Sloan, who had been instrumental in helping me when I was at All Star Wrestling. And it's just at the end of the promo, you know, Regal just said, you know, we're definitely really interested in you. There was a referee there who was doing the talent agency at the time as well. And he said, you know, we'll be in touch in April. So it was all very positive.
Yeah.
But then just as things happen like that, WWE, all of a sudden they're looking for something different. So in the new year, I was just too short for what they were looking for.
Yeah.
So it was just 2015, just kind of went with it. 2016, enjoying myself. Like, I progressed. Everything was going class. NGW, absolutely stellar run there. Really enjoying wrestling at the minute. I've been really busy. Gone back to wrestling full time. No longer needed a day job. Was paying for the mortgage. Everything's amazing. Got to meet Sammy Callahan, and Callahan at an NGW show, and then we had Progress the next day. So he stayed over in Hull, and we drove together. And he was like, "Hey, I saw your match last night, the main event." He said, "You're really good. Like, have you ever done a tour of the States?" I was like, "No, I haven't actually. Like, I really want to." And he was like, absolutely. Like, come stay on my couch, and I'll sort it out. Like, you should be there. I was like, "Wow, cheers, Sammy. Like, I really appreciate that."
Yeah.
And sure enough, stuck to his word. That I left in the September, and straight through to October, I was out in the United States. Sammy let me stay at his house, and he got me on a bunch of independent shows, like really high-profile ones, FIP, CZW, Evolved. It was just a really, Mid-South. It was IWA Mid-South. That was amazing. Rockstar Pro. Just honestly, so many amazing places that I just loved when I was there. I was like, this is really cool. Like, and Sammy just organised that just because, like, he saw something in me. So of course I let Regal know that, well, by the way, I'm going to be in Florida because, you know, so I'll be in the area if you need anything. Now, I'm going to take the story back a number of years to 2012. when I first met Dash Wilder, because I can't tell this chapter coming without him being mentioned. To this day, like the closest friend that I've made in pro wrestling, and like I was supposed to get married this year. He was going to be my best man because he's honestly that close of a friend to me. Spoke to him just early today. I can't say enough good things about him. And we just hit it off when he was wrestling over here in 2012. Like we only saw each other briefly in 2012, but it was just like the first time we was like in the same ring with each other. There's something there, like a bit of chemistry. You just see it. Got along with him as a person as well. I remember we was all traveling in the car, and a police bike goes past, and he started quoting Dumb and Dumber at the back. And I was like, okay, this guy is gonna be good to hang out with. And then, but then the following year he comes back in 2013, and we just got put together. I'd asked Brian that year. I'd always been working villain for him, and I was like, can I please work as a babyface this summer? Because I knew it was a weak point of mine, and that I was coming back to NGW as the top babyface in 2014. I was like, this is something that I need to attack and work on. So Brian said, yeah, sure. Like, we've got all these Americans coming back, so it can be UK versus the rest of the world, and you can take on one of the Americans. Sick. And it just so happened that Dash was that American that I got to work with. And we just gelled. Like, the matches were some of my favourite matches that I've ever had. But just the camaraderie, just hanging out with each other. We got each other through some hellish car journeys, through some hellish like weeks away on bad runs and stuff like that. And he just became one of my favourite people just to be around. And I knew that he was going to be getting signed. Like, I just knew how talented he was. And I knew that he'd come to England because Regal had helped sort that out for him. So he was definitely, like, by putting in contact with Brian. So, like, when Brian Dixon gets an email saying from Regal, like, I highly recommend this American who wants to come and work for you, then, he's on the right path. Yeah. So I knew that, like, in 2013, it was probably going to be like, this will be it until whenever. And we used to sometimes joke about, like, well, if we both end up in Florida, we'll room share and stuff like that, as we've been doing all summer. Yeah. And then, so anyways, like, off he goes. And to his credit, he stayed in touch. That's always, like, the true telling with somebody. Yeah. But, like, he was making more of an effort to send, like, a WhatsApp to say what's going on and just, like, checking in and talking back and forth and stuff. And I was like, that just went a long way with me. Like, I thought he's, like, this is someone, like, I love to just chat with, and I loved in the ring. I miss him dearly. And then, when I got my tryout, he was fully supportive and he was helping me. He was, like, saying, this is what they might be looking for. Just was really, really helpful and instrumental in me going to where I wanted to be and just being a hell of a good friend. And then, so, when I was in America, on that first tour, I was asked to come to Full Sail, and I was pretty excited, but they said, you need to get a medical done. Now, in the United States, you have to pay for medical and blood work. And blood work was $180. I could cover that, but my medical was a lot more. I'm not going to say the number, but it was a lot more. And I just, I couldn't afford it. So it was just going to be a case of, well, that's a shame, but, I still got to wrestle all these amazing independents out here in America. Yeah. Now, while I'm there, me and Dash, of course, hanging out, because we've not seen each other at that point in about 3. Oh, no, we've seen on some of his NXT tours in the UK. Yeah. But, like, we haven't actually, like, hung out on days like we used to when he was wrestling over here in, like, years. So it was, like, we was hanging out and went to, like, Universal and stuff like that. Again, he was just, like, he wouldn't dare let me even pay for a Coke or something like that. You know what I mean? Like,
Southern hospitality.
Yeah, he's honestly, it's just next level. It was just amazing. But more than anything, it was just so cool to just hang out with each other again. And then he knew about what was happening with NXT, and I said, it is what it is, man. Don't worry about it. So then as I say goodbye to him, he tells me that he's paying for this medical, and he won't accept no as an answer. I was like, you don't have to do this. Like, I don't want you to. Like, you've done more than enough for me already, mate. And he was just like, no, you deserve it. we're making this happen. And we get to Full Sail the next day, and they're struggling to find like a spot for me. And they had a local extra that they'd used a few times to work with Elias.
Yeah.
And again, Dash said, look, we use this guy regular. We can use him again. Nathan's only here for 1 more week, and then he flies back to the UK. I think you should take a look at him. And I think it was Matt Bloom. He said that to him. Matt Bloom said, okay, but on your head be it, Dash. And he was like, all right, he'll put my name to me. I went out there and did what I had to do. Like, I knew what my role was to make Elias look good.
Yeah.
And did it to the best of my ability that I could. But I'm wrestling at Full Sail. It's filmed for WWE. It's on the WWE network. And it was just one, again, those pat yourself on the back moments, Nath, because you did it. And there's a moment in that match where I actually get Elias up for the show stolen for my big false finishes. And I look directly into the hard cam and I kind of like smirk, and I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But the reason I did do it was for every single teacher, every single person who said, Nathan, you'll never do it. You'll never be a professional wrestler. You'll never wrestle for the WWE. Can I kind of swear here?
Fuck it, swear. I love it.
That was my big fuck you. Because here I am.
Yeah.
And I've done it. And I've been paid to do this here on international network for the WWE in Florida. It's not in the United Kingdom. This is an amazing moment.
Yeah.
And both Robbie and Dash were obviously there that night. And for them two to be there was even more special for me because they made that happen.
Yeah.
Like, they helped that journey, and that point wouldn't happen without them. And it was a really, really surreal moment. And me and Dash went out that night and had a few drinks and some food to celebrate. And it was just incredible. Like, I can't. That's the type of person he is, and I'm kind of like, I don't want to like push out his bad guy persona that he has on TV as Cash Wheeler, because he does an outstanding job at that every week on the AEW. But man, like, I talk about him and Rampage are just the best guys you could ever meet, man. Like, they're two really good people, like salt of the earth people. Nothing but good things to say about them. And like I say, that's how I toasted off my first United States tour. Sammy Callahan, huge thank you, and Dash for making that a possibility at NXT. At that time, it was the coolest thing. I had like a beautiful message from my fiance telling me how proud she was. I mean, it really was, like, to call my mum, and when it finally went on the network, she's watching it and she's in tears watching it. And something else I want to just add to that is Elias. Like, I've met him a number of occasions since then, usually when I was meeting up with Dash when he was wrestling over here with them. Yeah. And he'd always like sit down and have a drink with us, and he always thanked me for that match. He said, man, you made me look so good there. Like, I remember when it aired, he sent me a tweet like in inbox and said, I just want to reach out to say, like, you really made me look good. Thank you so much. And he always remembered me, and he always brought it up every time I saw him. And I just thought that was a credit to what he was as a human being as well. Yeah. Because, again, it's very easy when you start getting that push to that next level to just be like, okay, bye, peons. Like, I see it happen. Yeah. And it upsets me when I see it happen with people I thought was my friends. But then you find out, there's some very good people in this job. And, yeah, it was really just, I just thought it was like a cool thing that he always remembered that.
That's crazy, man. Even if you talk about Cash Wheeler, Dash, I think that for maybe like the last few years, I'd always say he's my favourite within the Revival. And I think just watching the match at Full Gear against the Young Bucks, and already at that point, it was an amazing match. And then
absolutely incredible. Yeah, it was everything that you could hope. I've watched that match. I don't get excited over modern wrestling that much these days.
Yeah.
That match like ignited something in me. Like it was absolutely brilliant. It was perfect. I loved it.
Yeah,
Loved
100%. Like,
and I am saying that biasly.
No, of course. And yeah, like for me, like especially when it comes to tag team wrestling and within like NXT, the Revival have always been people that I sought to for, you know, they're not the typical style of what's going on now. They've got that very old school rough and tough pound and ground kind of style, similar to like, you know, the Enforcers, Four Horsemen, you know, that kind of style. But then to see Cash Wheeler pull out that 450, I was just like, where the hell did this come from? Like, I was like, I'm watching the pay-per-view, I'm watching it with my little brother, and I'm watching it and I'm thinking, yeah, this match is amazing. And then it's coming towards the end of the match and I see him like looking at the turnbuckle and I'm thinking, what's he trying to, is he going to climb? Then I saw him do the springboard and I said, oh shit. Then I saw the 450 and I jumped up, I jumped out of my seat and I said, wait, what? No way. And as in, like, I think that's all me and my group chat were tweeting about. Like, wait, are you guys not seeing this? Like, this is the most beautiful 450 I've ever seen. Like, it has to be the most beautiful miss that someone has ever done.
And the flip
was crazy.
Cost them the match.
Exactly.
Like, that's
beautiful story.
So beautiful.
So
yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, and I know a lot of people are tweeting about how I think he had previously said in an interview with Chris Jericho on his podcast, saying that he can do it. And you know, I've heard a lot of wrestlers say, yeah, I can do this, I can do that. But when he actually done it, I was like, you know what? You don't even have to do it. I believe you now. I honestly believe.
Yeah. He's got a few more tricks up his sleeve as well that I've seen him do, and I'm like, hell. Like,
I'm not, and especially
I can barely do a moonsault, mate. Chill out.
Especially with his stature as well, like he's quite a built guy. So when I saw it, I was just thinking, that must have hurt. Like that must have definitely hurt. It's actually, big up the Revival, big up Dash and Axe. Let's talk more. So let's sway a bit away from wrestling for a bit. I know you've got another venture that you're very passionate about. Would you like to talk about that?
Yeah. I mean, I do toy collecting. I've been a toy collector for a long time of like classic toys, particularly from the 90s. And then all this kicked off at the start of the year, and I couldn't wrestle anymore, and I didn't know what to do with myself. Again, I go back to my other really close friend and one of my best friends, Andrew Dye, who runs Pooch Edits, which is the editing companies who used to do NGW and stuff. And we decided to do this project together where I talk about certain toy lines. Like I didn't want it to just be me going, oh, I have all these toys. Like I wanted to say, like I said, I've got this toy, for example, this comes from this toy line, and here's the history of that toy line, and you know what's also in this collection. And so that's what we decided to do and call it Inside the Toy Room and run like a little YouTube channel. Yeah. It was good to have a venture out of away from wrestling, really, because I definitely do think my brain needed this break from wrestling. I've had some very ups and downs with it in the past few years. So, like, post what happened in 2016, ended the year on a massive positive. 2017 was possibly one of the worst years of my life. I hated it. At the end of 2016, I got offered a contract for WWE for the first NXT UK tournament, and signed my side. Amazing. Go to London in the December to shoot the vignettes, talk to the commentary team, and do your medical. And do my medical, and God, Mr. Airwin, your blood pressure's reading high. It's 160. I was like, oh, what? Like, what are you on about? Like, I had my blood pressure done 2 months ago for NXT in Orlando, and it was perfect. You know, it was like 134. It was healthy.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do it again. It's reading even higher. So now I'm really panicking, and which means it's never going to come down.
Yeah.
So I failed the medical. But they said, don't worry, we just think it's a bit of anxiety, but we do need to get a clear medical from you. And so there was advised me to get this medication from a doctor called Nalapril that helps with blood pressure. I had to go through a private doctor to get it, but it was basically so that they could still honour my contract.
Yeah.
In the meantime, like I got like an email from them saying, look, we have to announce the roster and we have to announce the tournament brackets. And unfortunately, because we haven't got your medical cleared yet, we have to take you out of the tournament.
Yeah.
And I remember getting an email and I just laid there in bed, just staring for just hours, like I didn't move. And I finally got myself out of bed and it was just like emotionless, like completely emotionless. Got myself out of bed, started to make some breakfast, and I sat down on the sofa. And it was Dash that I went to text to let him know what had happened, because he obviously knew that I got the opportunity. And that was when I just cried, just broke down again. And
yeah.
It was terrible. Like everything I'd ever wanted in my life had just gone. Like, and everything I'd worked for at that stage of my life had just, this big opportunity had gone. So I didn't know what to do with myself for ages. And I got to do like a dark match at Blackpool because I eventually got cleared on the Sunday. But at that point, I had to take the contract away and it'd offer me just a one-off extra payment. And somebody else who got that one-off was just getting a one-off extra payment. Now got the full retainer.
Yeah.
And it was just like back to the building, but I couldn't make sense of it really in my mind at the time. It was real. I slumped into a major depression with it. I had some issues then, I think, like, bled into progress because, and this is me just speculating, pure speculation, but at that time WWE's relationship with Progress was getting tighter and they wanted to use more of the guys that were signed to NXT UK, and it was quite clear to me that they was trying to clear that spot. Like, I was losing opportunities that I was once getting told that I was going to be getting, like travel-wise and stuff like that. And they felt really bad about it. That was the thing that made me think, like, it may not be those guys' decision here. And I made the decision to leave Progress in 2017 because I was in a bad place with it emotionally. And it was really affecting me as a whole across all of wrestling, across all my life, really. So I left, and I remember Glenn being really upset that day. Like, when I left, he asked me to do my exit promo. In fact, him and John did, and Jim was in agreement and said, "We just want you to just speak from the heart, get off your chest." And so that promo is, my goodbye from Progress promo. It's quite much the shoot, really. There's quite a lot of truth in there. Yeah. And but then once it finished filming, Glenn, like me, just broke down, and I was on his shoulders, and he was, we was both sobbing, and he said, like, "I know this is hard on you," and it just made me think that there's something else. This wasn't a decision that they wanted to make, because at that point I'd had such a good relationship with those guys, and everything that we'd done with the Origin and seeing Progress go to Brixton and do huge shows like that, it was just amazing to be on that journey with them. So yeah, it was really upsetting when that happened, and that was part of that same year that the contracts had fallen through, and just a lot of bad things that happened in regards to wrestling and stuff. I went to America again, and this time was because Dash was like, you need to come over here and you need some headspace. And I was wrestling over there for a company called PWX, thanks to John Schuyler.
I've heard of PWX. Also,
great promotion, absolutely brilliant. And Schuyler was another guy who came over in 2013 with Dash, and he and I just hit it off. Like, him and Dash was like three of us always around each other, or like in matches with each other and stuff. And he was just like incredible in the ring as well. Like, someone I just had instant in-ring and chemistry with, and personally, like, got that same connection, that same work ethic and desire. And yeah, he sorted out this show at PWX for me while I was there. But it was just, we got there, and then there was a hurricane, which meant Dash got trapped filming Raw. I didn't get to see, like, a lot of bad things, you know what I mean? It was like, so we missed out on a few days, but it was still amazing, don't get me wrong. He made it like the best. He always makes it the best time when we're out there and hanging out together. But it was just like, here's a bunch of bad luck as well along the way. And it it was a really rough year, and I was left thinking. And they'd announced WOS, and I hadn't been contacted for it, and I was just like, I think this is it. Like, I think I'm done. Everything seems to have gone to a standstill here, and I don't know if I can hack it. And I was, like I said, I was in a depression with it. I was drinking heavily and abusing tramadol to get to sleep. It wasn't a good situation at all. And it's only been this past year that I've been able to really talk about that openly. Like, I was really in a bad place with it all. But then in 2018, things turned around again, and I got that opportunity from WOS, and I did the tag team thing with Adam, who I can't say enough good things about. Like, I absolutely love Adam Maxted, and I loved filming WOS. It was amazing, and the matches that we got to have, and the story that we got to have eventually. I remember one of the producers saying, like, this was one of our favourite things on the show by the time we got to the ladder match. And then we had this amazing tour at the start of 2019 as well with it, and doing Blackpool in front of a sellout crowd and stuff. It was just, wrestling was just giving me a lot of purpose again. It was really, it was paying for my living. I was on a good entry debut. It was giving me a retainer contract. So they was paying me a monthly wage as long as I made sure that those dates was my priority.
Yeah.
And it was a good wage, and I was like I say, I was living an amazing life, and then all this happened. 2020 happened, and everything just shuts down, and all these opportunities are just ending back where I was like in my own head, like, what's going on? What are we gonna do? So that was where Toy Room kind of came from, to bring it right back to it. It was like, okay, I need something else to focus on here before I go crazy. And like I say, wrestling had its ups and wrestling had its downs for me. So I was needing that break from it mentally. I really was, and to focus my attention onto something else. But now, I don't know where I am with it. Sometimes I miss it. Sometimes I worry a lot about it, and then. But yeah, in the meantime, I'm enjoying doing Inside the Toy Room. It's cool. Yeah. It's my hobby. It's my other passion. I get to do something cool with my best friends. Just annoying this lockdown. We just had to put a channel update out today. In fact, saying, like, unfortunately we can't bring you some content for a while because we only had so much film previously.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's such a shame that we've had to put it on hold for a while. But hopefully things do go back to normal. Well, I say normal, on December 2nd. We might be able to do some more.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, that would be sick. Have you watched, because there was a Netflix series that I watched, I think maybe sometime before the first lockdown, and it was Toys That Made Us. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah, class documentary.
One of the most brilliant series I've ever seen, ever. Like, just talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, He-Man, Power Rangers, like literally all of these different toy companies and how they started, and the pitfalls of potentially what they could have done. Just even seeing some of the sketches of like how the toys would have originally looked like to how they look like now, and just its impact over the years. The Barbie one was quite sick as well. So yeah, if you haven't
seen a wrestling one as well, man.
Wrestling, exactly. I think they were speaking about the Hasbro toys.
Yeah.
No, it was one of my favorite series that I'd watched. I think it was me and my siblings. We just watched it. We're just like, oh shit! I had no idea. It was brilliant. I always commend Netflix for their series. They always do sick documentaries. So if you guys haven't seen that, make sure you guys check it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just to round things off, I do something called Set the Scene. But this time around, I'm going to be the general manager. I've already set your opponents. You just have to set the pay-per-view and the potential title that you're fighting for. So let's set the scene. It's your dream pay-per-view. You're main eventing in a triple threat match. And you're going against Cash Wheeler and Sami Callihan. What is the pay-per-view you're fighting at, and what is the title you're fighting for?
It's going to be... Can we have SummerSlam going back to Wembley? And can we have it for the Intercontinental Championship? If WWE was that quality of product to get in.
When nobody meant something.
Yes, exactly.
When the mid card meant something, honestly. Wow, Nathan, this has been an amazing interview. I'm not going to lie to you. It took its a proper
pleasure,
trip,
man.
And
it does me just such as good, like, to get it, to talk about this stuff as well, like, more often. It's good for me emotionally, and it's good for my mental health to, you know, 100%. I'm kind of coming to the terms with this is probably something that's going to be behind me now, unfortunately. And so, like, this helps me, man. So, no, thank you very much for having me on and being able to talk through what's been a really cool wrestling career, man.
Anytime. Would you like to let the people know? Would you like to let people know your socials, where they can find you, where they can hit you up, check out your stuff as well?
No, to be honest, I'm really private these days. I don't really like social media anymore. I use Instagram to kind of, like, keep in touch with, like, just interesting. Like I say, I've got a toy room, right? So like, it's full of toy stuff and lizards and cool stuff like that, and my friends. And I've got a really private Facebook, but you know, I'm jumping on board with a lot of people in saying that Twitter's become a very toxic, horrible, disgusting place.
Twitter's not the one.
We've all started to abandon it, and I think it's a very, you know, it's the way forward. It definitely helped me. It's helped a lot of my friends and a lot of people that I know, and just, like, general people I speak to these days will say they don't bother with it because they just found it just being a place for you know, bad things to go down, basically. So I just kind of keep my, and, you know, with my wrestling career kind of, like, behind me for now, other than Toy Room, which has its own Instagram page, like, I haven't really got much to tell you. It's just me and my dog, man. You know what I mean? Like, I ain't got much to show now. I don't, you know, I'm not in spandex getting battered. I'm not coming out in a cool cape, and you know, all that stuff's behind me for now. So there's not much. It'd be pointless. You'd be wasting your time. Just you can check out Inside the Toy Room on YouTube. Like, say what we're doing now, what I'm, like, doing creatively, anyways, to keep that part of my brain occupied until I kind of figure out what the next step is with my life, really.
100%. Well, this was In the Know with Nathan Cruz. I've been your host, Delboy, and we hope to catch you guys in the next one. Wow.